Picture this. It's a regular Tuesday, nothing dramatic. You're sitting at your kitchen table, coffee going cold, and you're doing what most people do at the end of the month, just checking the numbers. Not because you're worried, just checking. And somewhere between your rent, your phone bill, your groceries, and that credit card payment, the one you've been paying every month without fail, by the way, you notice something. The balance hasn't really moved. You've been paying it for 8 months. You've never missed a payment. You've been responsible, and the balance has barely moved. So you go back further. You look at what you originally spent. You look at what you've paid back in total. And then it hits you. Not like a dramatic movie moment, not like an alarm going off. It hits you quietly, the way the most unsettling things always do. You've paid back nearly what you borrowed, and you still owe almost all of it. That moment right there, that quiet, slightly nauseating Tuesday morning moment is what this video is about. Not the reckless spender, not the person who blew their savings on vacation. We're talking about the person doing everything more or less right. Paying on time, staying employed, getting by, and still somehow, slowly, invisibly, sinking. Here's what people get wrong about debt. The conversation around it almost always goes one of two ways. Either it's your fault, you spent too much, you didn't budget, you made bad choices. Or it's a crisis. Headlines about record household debt, economists warning of collapse, all very alarming, very abstract. Neither of those conversations is particularly useful to the person actually living inside the numbers. Because the real story of how most people end up in a debt spiral isn't a story of recklessness. It's not a story of someone buying things they don't need with money they don't have. It's a story of a system that was specifically designed at every single step to feel completely manageable, to feel like the smart, responsible choice. And then one day, it isn't anymore. And by then, the spiral has already begun. The thing nobody tells you is that you can be careful, informed, and doing your best, and still end up exactly here. That's not a personal failure. That's the architecture of the thing working exactly as intended. Let's talk about how it actually starts. For most people, it starts with a credit card, and not even an irresponsible one. It starts with the kind of card marketed as a financial tool. Build your credit score, earn rewards, financial flexibility for life's unexpected moments. And honestly, that pitch makes sense. It's not wrong. Credit can genuinely be useful. So, you get the card. Maybe you're in your mid-20s, maybe a bit older. You use it sensibly at first. A few groceries here, a bill there, you pay it off. It feels almost elegant. You're building credit history. You're earning points. The system is working. Then something happens. It doesn't have to be dramatic. A car repair, a medical bill, a month where rent went up and your income didn't. One of those things that life just does. And the card is right there. It's what it's for, right? This is the unexpected moment the ad was talking about, so you put it on the card. And here's where the design of the system becomes visible, if you know what to look for. The statement arrives. Let's say the balance is $2,000, which, honestly, doesn't feel catastrophic. And right there on the statement, printed clearly, is the minimum payment. Let's say it's $55. $55. That's it. That's all they ask. And here's the thing. $55 is genuinely affordable. That's not a trick. That's just math. For most people, $55 is manageable, so they pay it. Responsible. On time. What the statement doesn't put in large print is this. If you only ever pay that $55 minimum on a $2,000 balance at a typical credit card interest rate of around 24% annually, which is where most standard cards sit, you will be paying that debt for roughly 5 to 6 years. And by the time you're done, you'll have paid somewhere around $3,600 total for something that costs $2,000. That's not a trap in some shadowy, illegal sense. It's all disclosed. It's in the fine print. It's legal, transparent, and almost universally ignored. Because $55 a month feels fine, and fine is the whole strategy. Now here's where the spiral gets its shape. Because life doesn't pause while you're paying down that card. The car still needs maintenance. The rent still goes up. And somewhere in month 4 or 5, another unexpected thing happens, and you reach for the card again. Why wouldn't you? You've been handling it. You've been paying on time. Your credit score is actually decent now. Maybe the bank even increased your limit as a reward. This is the part that almost nobody talks about: the credit limit increase. It's presented as a vote of confidence. We trust you more now. But what it actually does is expand the ceiling of how much you can owe while still feeling like everything is under control. So now you have more available credit, and you use a little more. And you pay the minimum, and you use a little more. And each month, the minimum payment is just a little bit higher, but still always affordable, always just within reach. This is how the spiral works. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just incrementally, month by month, the debt grows faster than the payments reduce it. Because interest is compounding continuously in the background on money you've already spent, on things you may not even remember buying. And then comes the most psychological part of all of this. At some point, and this is the moment that changes everything, the debt stops feeling temporary. It stops being that thing I need to pay off. It just becomes part of the monthly budget. It's just a line item now. Credit card, $85 a month. Same as the phone bill. Same as the streaming subscriptions. It's just there. Normal. Researchers who study financial behavior have a term for this. They call it debt normalization. And it's arguably more dangerous than the interest rate itself, because the interest rate can be calculated, confronted, and addressed. But once you've psychologically filed debt under this, is just how monthly finances work, it becomes almost invisible. You stop fighting it. You stop thinking of it as a problem to be solved. It's just the water you swim in. And this is exactly when the second card appears. Or the personal loan offer in your email. Or the buy now, pay later option at checkout. Each one arriving at the precise moment when you've already proven to yourself and to the algorithm that you can handle monthly payments. The offers don't come to people who are obviously struggling. They come to people who are managing, people whose credit score says reliable, people who pay on time, because those are the customers that are most profitable. Not the ones who default, but the ones who carry a balance indefinitely, paying interest every single month, year after year, never quite paying it off, never quite falling behind. That is the business model, and it works extraordinarily well. At any given point, the average household carrying credit card debt is paying somewhere around $1,000 to $1,500 per year just in interest, not reducing principal, just servicing the cost of having the debt. That's money that never builds anything. It doesn't buy groceries. It doesn't go into savings. It just disappears, month after month, quietly. And what makes this particular kind of financial stress so corrosive is that it doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't feel like a crisis. It feels like a slow, constant weight, a background hum. You can go weeks without really thinking about it, and then it surfaces at 2 in the morning when you can't sleep, or when a friend mentions a trip you know you can't join, or when you look at your bank account 3 days before payday and the math just barely works. That's the real cost, not just the dollars. The mental load, the low-grade anxiety of knowing you're technically fine, but always one thing away from not being fine. Here's the shift, though, and it's important. Understanding this system, really understanding how it works, changes what you see when you look at your finances. It stops being a story about discipline or willpower and starts being a story about structure, about design, about incentives that were not built in your favor. That reframe matters, not because it removes responsibility, you still have to make decisions, but because it means the solution isn't to feel worse about yourself. The solution is to change the structure, to make the math work differently. There's a concept in behavioral finance called the avalanche effect, not of debt, but of clarity. When someone finally sees the full picture, total balance, actual interest rate, real payoff timeline, their relationship with money changes. Not because the numbers improved, but because the fog lifted. And with clarity comes agency. Knowing that a $3,000 credit card balance at 24% interest will cost you nearly $2,000 in interest if you only make the low monthly payments isn't a scary statistic. It's a decision-making tool. Because now you can ask a different question. What if I paid $150 a month instead of $90? The answer is, you'd pay it off in just over 2 years. You'd save over $1,000 in interest. That's not a radical financial overhaul. That's just seeing the whole board before you make your move. So what does this actually look like in real life? Not as a rigid system, not as a total lifestyle transformation, just as a shift in how you engage with money. The first thing is simply knowing your real numbers, not roughly. Exactly. Every debt you carry, the actual interest rate on each one, and the real payoff date if you only pay the minimum. Most people have never looked at this clearly, all at once. It takes about an hour. And it is one of the most clarifying hours you can spend with your own finances. The second thing is attacking one balance with intensity while maintaining minimums on everything else, not all of them at once, just one. The highest interest one first. Mathematically, it costs the most. Or the smallest one first if you need a psychological win to stay motivated. Both approaches work. The research is genuinely split on which is more effective because it depends on the person. What doesn't work is spreading extra payments thin across everything. Focus creates momentum. The third thing, and this is the one people resist most, is freezing the growth. Not dramatically cutting everything, not swearing off cards forever, but simply stopping the balance from growing while you bring it down. That means treating the card limit as irrelevant to what you actually spend. The bank raised your limit to $8,000. That doesn't mean $8,000 is a budget. And the fourth thing, maybe the most underrated of all, build even a small buffer. Not a full emergency fund overnight, just a small cash cushion, even $300 or $500 sitting in a separate account that is genuinely only for emergencies. Because the debt spiral accelerates most viciously when an unexpected expense forces you to add to a balance you're trying to pay down. A buffer breaks that cycle. It interrupts the mechanism, even a modest one. None of this is extreme. None of it requires radical sacrifice. It requires clarity, and then a few deliberate choices made consistently over time. I think about that Tuesday morning moment a lot, the one at the kitchen table, with the cold coffee, looking at a balance that somehow hasn't moved. Because that moment doesn't have to be the end of something. It can be the beginning of actually understanding the game you're playing. Not a game rigged against you by cartoon villains, just a system designed for its own benefit, not yours. And once you see it for what it is, it loses a lot of its power. You are not bad with money because you ended up here. You were not careless. You were offered something that looked reasonable at every single step. And most people, most careful, working, paying their bills, people have been exactly where you are. The difference now is that you know how the spiral forms. You know where the momentum builds. And knowing that, even if it's just 90% of the picture, is genuinely most of what it takes to stop it. Progress in this doesn't look like perfection. It doesn't look like a zero balance by next quarter, or a completely transformed relationship with money by next year. It looks like 1 month where the balance went down by $50 more than it did last month. It looks like one decision made differently because you understand what's actually at stake. That's how this changes. Slowly, then faster. Just like the spiral. Only this time working in your direction. The system was built over decades. You're not going to dismantle it in a weekend, but you can stop letting it run on autopilot in your life. And that, quietly, is everything. I'll see you in the next one, where we keep pulling back the curtain, one honest conversation at a time.